It's that time again. Time for another episode of the ASUN Gameday podcast, ready to break down everything that's going on around the Atlantic Sun Conference. I'm your host, William Hall, and we're down to two. One men's and one women's team still remain undefeated in conference play. We're talking about the Queens Royals on the men's side and the EKU Colonels on the women's side. And then there were just two. And talking about Queens, they keep things going. They go on the road again to Florida, get wins against FGCU and Stetson. Both of those games at times were tight, but I think that you just really can say that good teams win those types of games. And this is clearly a good teams we're watching with this 2026 Royal squad. So just ready to see what they're going to do to keep this going. And we don't have to wait long with them having a game coming up on Wednesday. And another team to talk about, Lipscomb. The matchup of the week, it lived up to the hype. That was definitely a back and forth game between Lipscomb and Austin Peay, which we had a feeling that it might be the way both of these teams were playing coming into this game. And like I said, the game didn't disappoint. It came down to the very end, and the Bisons, they outpunched Austin Peay there towards the end, and they got the win. I don't think that this puts Austin Peay in a bad position. I think it was their first conference loss, obviously, and putting it into their winning streak that they had. But streaks, talking about that matchup, it kept Lipscomb's dominance in that rivalry going and just kind of made that drought even longer that Austin Peay's been waiting for an opportunity to beat the Lipscomb Bisons. The Govs had a tight battle with EKU last Thursday. We talked, and they got out of there with that win. We talked about the game, the matchup of the week, the game they had with Lipscomb. I think that Corey Gibson and that team, they're going to be really fired up. They're back in their home building for their next two games. They have FGCU and Stetson coming into town. I know they're going to be focused. I know they're going to be, like I said, I think they're going to be fired up after last week, the tight game with EKU, the loss to Lipscomb. It's going to have that team motivated. By no means do I think that team is going anywhere, and I know I do, and I would imagine somewhere in Clarksville they've got February 4th circled because it's the rematch with Lipscomb. And I just looking forward to that after seeing what this first game was and knowing the expectations that both of those teams have and the way they've been looking. I'm sure it's going to be another game of two top teams, and getting that win, that head-to-head. Austin Peay's going to be looking to tie it up 1-1 this season. Obviously, Lipscomb wants to sweep the series, the season series with Austin Peay. So that game is going to be it's a few weeks away, obviously looking ahead. But right now, I think Austin Peay and Lipscomb are they're just going to always be this year. I think they're always going to be neck and neck and right there towards the top. So looking forward to that game, but obviously seeing what Austin Peay can do coming off the game with EKU and coming off the loss against Lipscomb this week. They're back at home in Clarksville in their own building for two games. I mentioned about the Eagles and the Hatters coming into town. On the women's side, talking about EKU, we've talked about Greg Todd's team a lot this year, deservedly so. They are 6-0. They remain undefeated after defeating Lipscomb and Bellarmine last week. I think if you look back at that Lipscomb game, that third quarter really showed that when this team is on, it just showed what they can do. I think they outscored the Bisons 18-8 in that third quarter of that game last week. And it's when they're locked in, they are a problem for anybody on any given day. And it's going to be just excited to see if they can keep this rolling. North Alabama women's basketball, I think, had a big win Saturday against Jacksonville, and more so, I say it's a big win. Obviously, a road win, a conference win, you want to get those wins. But the way Jacksonville and the Dolphins were probably on a high after their game Thursday with Central Arkansas. Shout out to Priscilla Williams for that 44-point outing and that overtime win against UCA on Thursday. But for North Alabama going to Swisher, we've already well-documented, tremendously hard place to go in there and win. North Alabama went in there, they got that win. I think that you're looking at UNA, the Lions are 3-3 right now, middle of the pack, a lot of 3-3 teams on the women's side right now. I think the next handful of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, are really going to give us an idea about what the Lions will be this year. I think that they have, obviously they've won games that they probably should win if you're looking at the teams that they're face off against. But they've got some teams coming in their schedule upcoming that are teams that were expected to finish higher than them in the poll, teams that have had great conference years and seasons so far. So there are a few challenges that are coming up over the next few weeks for the Lions. So I'm very interested to see how they handle that test that are coming up. And again, I would say that's going to be a real way to just gauge how good this team could be. And I don't think they are close to their ceiling. I think just watching that team play, there's a lot of room for growth, and I'm excited to see what UNA can get going. And the last team I'd like to highlight on the women's side is West Georgia. Obviously, they've got a hot start to conference play, coming off that huge win against FGCU. The Wolves are they've got it going right now. But who better to talk about West Georgia and the Wolves than their own head coach? So after a quick break, I will be joined by head coach Joanna Reitz to talk some UWG women's basketball here on the ASUN Gameday podcast.
Welcome to the Atlantic Sun, where heart-pounding moments are born and where champions rise above, where speed defies limits and precision finds its mark, where millions of fans nationwide cheer for excellence, determination, and fairness, where public, private, and faith-based schools compete side by side, fostering sportsmanship and unity. From the beaches to the mountains, the Atlantic Sun is the destination.
I'm joined now by West Georgia women's basketball head coach Joanna Reitz. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, William?
Pretty good, pretty good. Having a great year, obviously. So congratulations on that. We'll get to a little talk about the season as a whole. But first off, take me back to last Thursday. Talk me through the end of that game as your team closed it out against FGCU, and that was just a huge win. So take me through the mindset you had at the end of that game.
That was a fun win. Yeah, I think the mindset going in, we wanted to be the team that snapped the streak. We had a really good couple days of practice. I thought our players were focused and locked in and really had a good grasp of the game plan. And then they did it, and they went out there and played together. And FGCU made some nice runs, and we held them off. Our players hit big shots, at critical times, and so it was really fun. Celebrated big water fight in the locker room after, and it was a great win for our program.
Yep. The team is 10-0 this year at home, 11 wins in a row at home, dating back to last season. What is it that makes it so special in that building with your team, and what makes it so difficult for teams to come in there and leave victorious?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we love playing at home. We shoot in that gym all the time. Our players really put the work in outside of practice, so they're ready in those big moments. But we have great fan support. We love our university and our community here in Carrollton, and we take a lot of pride in playing at home and protecting home court.
So there's a big one coming up tomorrow on the road at Central Arkansas. What does it take to take that great play that you have had at home, take it on the road, and get a win in someone else's building?
I think it takes just kind of an emotional reset. And I think our players did a really nice job of that in between Florida Gulf Coast and Stetson. And when we win, we do celebrate, but then we're quickly back to preparing for the next opponent and ready for the next game. And so we're preparing now for Central Arkansas just with the same intensity and focus that we prepared for Florida Gulf Coast and Stetson. And we know it's tough to win on the road. They're a great team, and so it'll be a great game.
Yep, looking forward to it. That is a spoiler alert for our podcast. That is our ASUN matchup of the week this week. So we're all going to be focused on that game. I think it's a big game. Should be a great game as well. The West Georgia hashtag built for more. What more can we expect from this West Georgia women's basketball team the rest of the season?
More of the same. I think that's a credit to our players of, we talk about just being our best at every rep. and every possession and having the next play mentality. And I don't think there's anything special coming down the pipe. I think it's just kind of sticking to our principles offensively and defensively. And um, so, we've been shooting the ball well. We'd like to see that to continue, but we've got to be solid, in our other areas of the game, so that if we have a night where the shots aren't falling quite as easily, we can still win and beat good teams. And but I think our players are playing hard and they're playing together. They're playing very unselfish basketball. We have a lot of different weapons out there. And so I think you'll continue to see that.
Awesome.
And let me add on one more, William. I think you'll see joy when you watch us play. Our players are enjoying playing together. They're enjoying playing in this system, and they're having a lot of fun out there. So more of that.
Yeah, love it, love it. The joy is both ways. It's been great watching the team this year. Very exciting. We love to see it, and year two has been amazing. So obviously, a great season. We're just getting started here in conference play. Looking forward to seeing what West Georgia does the rest of the way, and then obviously seeing you down here in Jacksonville for the tournament in March. So, Coach, best of luck the rest of this way, and we'll talk again soon.
That sounds good. Thank you, William.
Thank you.
We will be relocating our conference headquarters to the city of Jacksonville, and we're really excited to help be fuel to your fire of what you've got going on here in the city of Jacksonville.
Hang another banner. ASUN banners.
The ASUN Championship, and are going to the NCAA tournament for the first time. Sun Championship.
Let's take some time to dive into some key matchups coming up this week. And I think the first one, already kind of mentioned it, North Alabama at Queens. The Royals are back at home after 4 straight on the road in Florida, hosting North Alabama. These teams are in very different spots right now in the conference standings. If you take a look at it, 3 weeks in, only 6 games played. Queens is probably where a lot of people thought that they would be. Pick number 1 in the poll, 6-0. North Alabama, not so much. But this game is a game that if the Lions can go into that building and get that win, could turn things around for that squad. So obviously want to see that for 2 reasons. One is to see if Queens can keep that streak going and remain undefeated, and then UNA to start looking like the UNA that we thought we would see. These are the type of games that you need to go on the road and get. So excited to check out that game. And another game, this one on Thursday, Central Arkansas at West Georgia. West Georgia has hit a rough stretch. They've dropped 3. I'm curious to see if they can flip the switch back on, which is what I wanted to see from Central Arkansas going into last week's games. And I know the Bears will be coming in with a lot of confidence after a really tough game with Jacksonville at home and then beating North Florida. I think that was what I wanted to see with UCA after, 2-0 start to conference play, and they lost 2. So they're sitting at 2-2. What's this team going to be? Are they going to be able to just get it back on track? Now they're sitting at 4-2. And the start West Georgia had, I'm very high on West Georgia, still am. I think that I would like to see if they can get it going, and what better way to do it back at home hosting Central Arkansas. On the women's side, Jacksonville at EKU. The women's team with the best record in the conference right now is back at home, welcoming Jacksonville to Richmond. These 2 teams, they split their meetings last year, but since they've been ASUN opponents, the Dolphins have never won on the Colonel's home floor. See if Special Jennings in Jacksonville can change that this year, this Thursday. And another game, Austin Peay at FGCU. Now, a few weeks ago, we had this matchup, was 2 2-0 teams at the time. And now we're coming into this game, FGCU's 5-1, Austin Peay's at 3-3. Austin Peay could use a good start to this road trip. They could use some wins, obviously, and then the big win, the elusive win against the Eagles. It's been tough to come by so far. It's especially going to be tough to get in that building, but ready to see what's going to happen when Austin Peay travels to Fort Myers to take on the FGCU Eagles. Now, power rankings time. And I think I'm going to go women first because I think there's a bigger potential jump on the women's side of the power rankings for me. Number 6 is Stetson. I think Stetson has been trying to find themselves one of those 3-3 teams we've talked about on the women's side, and waiting to see what they will do with the next coming weeks to again separate themselves from the bottom half and jump back into the top 4 where a lot of us thought that they would be. Time will tell. Number 5 on the women's side is Austin Peay. I kind of feel the same way about Austin Peay. We know where they started conference play. We know about the run they had at non-conference. Can they start to climb back to the top? Number 4 is North Alabama. And I think that 3-game winning streak that the Lions have going on right now is why I feel so highly of them, have them 4 in the power rankings. But as I stated earlier, I do want to see what the next few weeks hold for UNA. And if they can get some more wins, I think they jump higher and put themselves in a position to be in that coveted top 4 when this thing is done to get, of course, the bye in the tournament. Number 3 is FGCU. I know they did have a split week last week, but that's still a team with a lot of talent, and they've got the pedigree. They've been the gold standard, and I think that pride of that program, they just always, they're going to be a problem. Like I said, until they're not playing, they're always in it. 2 right now will be West Georgia, mainly because of that win against FGCU. They really showed me something. They were already trending in the right direction. Last week I said that was a game that I thought that West Georgia could win against FGCU. They did win that game against FGCU, and that is why right now I have them 2 in the power rankings, because the number 1 team on the women's side clearly is EKU. This season they have been the class of women's basketball in the ASUN. 6-0, number 1 in the power rankings. That's easy. On the men's side, I'll start at the top of the men's. 6-0 is easy right now. Queens is number 1. Lipscomb is number 2. Obviously, because they ended the undefeated conference season of Austin Peay, who is the 3rd team. I think Queens, Lipscomb, and Austin Peay, I kind of want to draw a line after those 3 teams right now. I know it's very early, but those are the 3 that I think are in that top group. So I'm curious to see who is that next team that jumps up with those 3 right now. Those 3, I think there's a line, there's a separator. The 4th team is Central Arkansas. And to be honest with you, I think Central Arkansas right now looks like the team that would be in that class with those top 3. I think that Central Arkansas, we haven't seen those matchups, many of those matchups. We saw one. We've seen Austin Peay, Lipscomb, but ready to see those teams start to get at each other. And Central Arkansas is 4 in the rankings. My power rankings, that is, not the standings. Now, 5 in my power rankings is EKU, and we have seen EKU matched up against Austin Peay. We've seen how that game came down to a shot seconds away from being an EKU victory. I think that EKU, after some early season struggles, is trying to find form, and I think that's why a lot of people don't put a whole lot of stock into non-conference play, because when you get to the conference season and you start seeing these teams match up against each other, things change. 6 on the men's side is Stetson. I know that Stetson has a lot of challenges coming up just to see if they can keep things going. I think they have been in a lot of games with a lot of these teams that are at the top of our standings. Stetson's been in games with these teams. Stetson has been pushing these teams. And they've got some things to figure out down there in DeLand. I think that they can. Watching this team, I was there in person to watch the game with Queens last weekend, and that team, watching them, I see that they had that fight. They've got that drive. They just, I don't know what it is. Not a coach, can't figure it out. I'm just watching the games like everybody else. But I look at that Stetson team, and I see a team that is definitely in the top half of the conference. And if things go different in a few of those games, they could be in the top 3 right now because they were definitely in those games against those opponents. And the one loss that Lipscomb has in conference play, Stetson handed to him. So Stetson is 6 in my power rankings on the men's side. So that's where we're at right now. Power rankings, a couple games to watch, but the game to watch, the matchup of the week, that's coming next. Quick break, and we'll be right back. Let's dive into the ASUN matchup of the week. Women's basketball is going to be West Georgia at Central Arkansas. We do not have to wait long. This game is on Wednesday in Conway, Arkansas. And the history of this matchup is short, but it's not sweet for one side of the matchup. They've only played twice, with West Georgia just coming into the ASUN as a member last season. Both those games ended in Sugar Bear victories. UCA won 67-64 in Carrollton last January. Then they defeated West Georgia 72-62 in Conway last February. But this is a new season. It's a much different Wolves squad. Last season, West Georgia averaged 67.3 points per game. They're around -1.5 on the scoring margin. So far this year, that scoring margin is plus 11.7 points, and they are scoring 74 points per game. It's the second best offense in the league behind EKU. UCA is not far behind, 71.7 points per game as a team, but the Sugar Bears defense this season has averaged holding teams to 59.6 points per game, and they've been holding their ASUN opponents over these 6 games of conference play to around 61 points per game. Now, I've thrown a lot of numbers out there. What does that mean to me? To me, that means that this game is going to come down to UCA's defense. I think if UCA's defense is able to keep West Georgia off the three-point line, where they have been deadly, and out-rebound the Wolves, I think they'll be in good shape. However, if that West Georgia offense gets rolling, if that combination of Jasmine Jones and Sydney Tolbert starts to get hot, I think it's going to be a long night in Conway for the home team. And I just think that's where it's at. Is if West Georgia offense can get going, it looks good for the Wolves, clearly, but I think that UCA defense, if they are able to do what they've done to some teams, impose their will, and slow down West Georgia, I think the UCA offense scores enough to take care of that, but they need that defense. They need to get them off of that three-point line. The UCA, and make a lot of threes themselves, so I don't want to say that the three-point game would go in favor of one. You got West Georgia, who shoots a best three-point percentage as a team. And then you got UCA that makes the most threes as a team. So we could be in line for a shootout, but if the defense of UCA shows up, I think that is an X factor that changes this completely and will swing this in the favor of the Sugar Bears. But we just got to wait and see. Not long. Again, Wednesday, West Georgia at Central Arkansas, ASUN matchup of the week. As we say every week, there's a lot of games coming, a lot of more games coming. We're making our way to March 3rd through 9th, the ASUN basketball tournament, men's and women's, in Jacksonville, Florida. I can't wait. Can't wait to watch these games. I'm William Hall. The ASUN Game Day podcast is signing off, and I'll see you next week.